Now, our next guest was born with cerebral palsy, which affects his speech as well as the functioning of his legs and arms. But through the help of personal assistants who act as his translators and help him with day-to-day tasks, he has been able to lead an independent life and was one of the founders of the Centre for Independent Living in Ireland.
Michael McCabe joins us now with his wife Sinead to tell us how the latest round of HSE cuts could adversely affect his life. We are also joined by Gary Lee from the Centre for Independent Living, which introduced personal assistance services to Ireland and helps people with disabilities live independent lives. Good morning to you one and all. Very welcome. Michael, I want to chat to you because I want you to give our viewers at home a sense of how much help you need throughout your day to live the independent life you manage to live and how you would be affected without that help.
It's very hard to do it in a short time, but he'll do his best. As you said, with his arms and legs and his speech being affected, without PAs he wouldn't be able to function as a normal person.
I won't be able
He wouldn't be able to work. And that would mean that I wouldn't be able to work.
We wouldn't be able to pay a mortgage.
Which would mean we wouldn't be able to pay our mortgage.
And we would be dependent on more dependent on the age.
And we'd be more dependent on the state.
And
that would affect our relationship.
We wouldn't be equal.
Because we wouldn't be equal.
If it depends on somebody.
Because if you depend on somebody,
you
lose.
Very fast.
It affects your relationships very badly.
Yeah.
I have to say, I don't want to sound patronising anyway, but the fact that you hold down a full-time job to me is pretty remarkable, Michael. I mean, it's a huge achievement.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
You don't think so?
He sees himself as like anybody else. But he does need assistance.
Yeah. But I'm very independent in my mind.
But he's very independent in his mind.
I can see that, Michael, I can see that. Sinead, if I can come to you now, you must be terrified at the prospect of these cuts, because it would, as Michael just outlined, alter your life radically.
It's very frightening, I suppose, and at the moment, the uncertainty of exactly how those cuts, how far they will go, is probably even more frightening. But I suppose for every hour of assistance that Michael could potentially lose, that's an extra hour that I would have to assist him.
Because you're in the role of a full-time carer as it stands.
No, I hold a full-time job myself.
But I'm assuming when you get home, you care for Michael.
Michael's one personal assistants kind of cover most of the day to late night. It's kind of, if he needs assistance during the night, that I will back that up, or if there's certain, say, physical things that need maybe two people to.
And that would probably happen quite a lot.
And that would happen, yeah. And so I will help out there.
But Michael, as a taxpayer, you know, mortgage holder, somebody who contributes to the economy, are you angry about what's being done? Are you frightened? Are you worried, or a combination of all of those?
All of the above.
All of the above.
But I handle it, and I am on people don't realize. I'm a husband.
That's what you don't understand. I think some people don't realise, as you said, he's a taxpayer.
And my wife and my baby.
And Michael saying my wife and my personal assistants are all taxpayers.
It
doesn't make economic sense.
That way.
Poor people end up being on stage.
Yeah.
Because apart from, this is a very interesting debate, and not just in terms of the actual cuts and what they will do, but it also goes to the core of how we feel about people with special needs and disabilities. And that we forget that most of them are actually active contributing members of society. They work, they contribute in some form or fashion. And these cuts, there's a perception, I think, sometimes that they're a drain on the state rather than they are net contributors to it. So we have to kind of rethink, and I'll bring Gary in on this, we have to completely rethink how we feel about this and what our perceptions are. You know, we've just watched the Paralympics and we're basking in the glory of that. And in the meantime, where you have the Taoiseach and the government patting these people on the back and you know, figuring out how to give them a parade when they come home, on the other hand, they're cutting benefits and they're cutting aids and they're making those people's lives even more difficult.
They are, and the announcements the other day actually fly in the face of government policy, but not only that, also of our international obligations in this area. For example, it makes a mockery of Ireland's reasons for failing to ratify the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. 120 countries have ratified it since March of 2007, yet we as a state have failed to do it. Now that's absolutely shameful. Article 19 of the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities provides for independent living and personal assistance services. Yet we as a state are saying that the government is saying that they will not ratify it until all the ducks are in a line, that we're in compliance with the convention. Yet what they've announced on Thursday evening is actually completely against that and flies in the face of what they've been telling us and the reasons they've been giving us for failing to ratify the UN Convention.
Gary, can I ask you a sort of a nuts and bolts, dollars and cents question? How much does a personal assistant actually cost per annum?
Well, we're looking at costings of around €23 per hour. Now it depends on obviously on how many hours someone is assessed.
How much would Michael get a week, for example? How many hours?
Michael has about 100 hours a week.
I will be one of that. I will be one of them lucky people.
But Michael will be one of the lucky people.
The other item that is we're on the red one.
The other side of that is that they're trying to get direct funding or direct payments, which would cut a lot of the costs down. Because
Michael, can I ask you, I mean, this is your opportunity to speak in public and address Minister James Riley. What would you like to say to him?
It might be off the air.
You might be put off the air if you
Well, no swearing, Michael. No swearing. But seriously, what would you like to say to him?
Well,
You think with somebody within his profession?
I can't believe.
You can't believe
what he's doing.
What he's doing.
We all know the country in a bad way.
We all know the country's in a bad way.
People like my then
but people like himself didn't have any dealings with how and why that happened.
And that people under the people of the
it's unfair that people on the lowest level
Are
paying for other people.
You're paying the price.
Yeah.
Okay, well look,
It's a price you can't afford to pay, if we're honest.
We're going to have to leave it at that. But you know, we see these headlines and we see these news stories, and we very often don't actually see the real effect. We don't meet the people who they directly affect. Well, this morning we have, and so people at home can now make their own judgment about whether these cuts are right or just or appropriate or fair. Thank you,
Michael. Thank you, Sinead. Thank you, Gary. Thank you. Pleasure. Now, last night Ireland won 4 golds, 2 silvers and a bronze at this year's London Paralympics. We'll be getting the latest update after the break.